So, let me bring in our guest, Mr. Bill Holloway. Hello, Bill.
James, how are you doing today?
Oh, very good, very good, very good. And I want to tell you, I stumbled onto Penta Water at a health store, and the person said, you ought to try this. They told me the structured water, and it's pure and all that. Okay, fine. And I just took it and went in my truck, and I drove away. Well, I took that drink that night when I got to my hotel room. I took it out, and once I started drinking, I could not stop.
No.
It was just what? It was like wet and no bad taste, and it was just like gone. I'm like, wow, what was this?
Almost vanishes in your mouth. It's just almost like drinking liquid air.
Yeah, and it's satisfying, but it also leaves you for more. And then that's when I stuck the tape in, which came with it when I bought it, and I listened to it later and explained a few things, and I just wanted to share that with the people. It's really an incredible thing.
Well, it is. We're very proud of it, and it took a lot of years to get it to market, and it's become the #1 bottled water and health food industry for the last 2 years, with no advertising and no marketing, just by word of mouth. It's already exported to Canada, to the UK, to Japan, to Taiwan, it's just around the world.
And people are listening here by their computers. If they go to pentawater.com, you can follow along, so to speak. One of the basic things when you're talking about bottled water is it's pure, but this is purer than pure, isn't it?
Well, we start off with the purity. We start off by taking it through reverse osmosis, and then deionization, and then microfiltration and ultraviolet treatment. So once we clean it up from about 600 parts per million of total dissolved solids down to less than a quarter of a part per million, down to the parts per billion, then we're ready to make it into Penta Water. And from that point on, it takes an additional 8 hours to make Penta Water with it.
So, I mean, it's not only just pure. I mean, it's the purest. I mean, we're starting out already. If that was all the water was, it would be good.
That's right.
But that's kind of the start.
That's just the start. And from there, then we treat it with ultrasound, and we actually change the state of the water. It's still water, still H2O, but for one thing, it's in about 30% smaller cluster size on average, but that's not the real key to it. The real key to the function of why it works is its energy state. It's in a different vibrational energy state. In other words, it's metastable. It vibrates at a different energy state than normal water.
And is that because it's smaller? Or is that just the smaller?
No, it's not because it's smaller. You can't make a molecule itself smaller. You can make the clusters of molecules smaller. It's like if you say you boiled water. You're taking it into a higher energy state. It's leaving the ground state and going to a higher energy state. Well, we're able to do that at room temperature, take it to a higher energy state without having to boil it, without having to heat it to do it. So when it goes into your body, it's vibrating at a higher energy state, so it can do more work inside of your body.
No, all right. Now that's interesting, because I have a little chemistry, physics background, high school, college stuff, and I was always into science. And that's the part that really fascinated me, was that I wanted to know you're putting energy into it, sort of like if you were going, and I'm using a bad analogy perhaps, but just like if you're going to supersaturate water with salt or sugar or something like that, you're putting some kind of energy into it so that it vibrates faster and yet remains water?
Right. Yeah, actually, what we believe is occurring, and we don't know yet for sure, but what we see happening when we do a laser spectroscopy on it is that we're pulling the electrons out into a higher orbit, so that and because they're in a higher orbit, to make the same trip around the nucleus and to keep from colliding into the nucleus, they have to travel faster. So the whole molecule is vibrating faster.
Okay, now I can understand that, but how do you keep it? It's not
an electrical energy, it's a vibrational energy.
How do you keep it, according to my knowledge of physics, how do you keep it up in the higher shells without releasing that energy and going back down to the natural state?
Wow, we wish we knew.
Okay.
We do not have the slightest idea why. You're absolutely correct. It should return to it's a lower energy state, and it doesn't, and it boils at a higher temperature. That'll be being published very shortly. It's more viscous than normal water, has a higher surface tension than normal water, yet it's absorbed into the cells much more rapidly. You recover from exercise. We just had a study that just was completed by John Moores University in Liverpool, England, that will be published, and athletes on a double-blind, placebo, crossover study were completely, after they were dehydrated, a 2% loss of body weight to dehydration, and then they were rehydrated with a control water and then Penta Water. They were completely recovered from the dehydration in 4 hours, where the other waters that they used for control hadn't even turned the corner and started towards recovery yet, and yet the athletes that were on the Penta Water had completely recovered. All their hemoglobin, their hematocrit, all their blood was back to normal levels. All their physiological responses, everything were back to normal.
So this higher vibrational state would allow the water to pass through the membranes and exchange and get absorbed and soaked in at a faster rate.
That's what we think is occurring, because water primarily hydrates into a cell through a little protein water channel called aquaporins. In fact, Dr. Peter Agri, who discovered them, won the Nobel Prize last year for his discovery of them. And they're little tiny proteins, 6-segmented protein that sits in the surface of all cells. And they only allow single-file H2O molecules to go into the cell. The cell will still hydrate some through the semipermeable membrane, how we used to think it did, but primarily most of the water enters through these aquaporins that actually operate. They dilate by different substances like AQP1, which is in the red blood cell. We'll use the amino acid serins, and AQP3 in the kidneys. We'll use the hormone vasopressin to dilate it and allow the water molecules in and out of the cell. So we think because of this higher vibrational energy, they're just able to move faster.
All right, we're already getting questions in on the chat line. We're open the phone at the bottom, but a couple of these questions I thought would fit right in nice. Does the higher vibrational state change the actual taste of the water, or perhaps maybe it's just so pure that it doesn't taste like things that could be in it?
Well, it really doesn't taste, but we do hear that that it doesn't have that flat taste. Usually, when you clean water very clean, it has a flat taste to it, and Penta Water doesn't have that flat taste. And the only thing I can figure out, really the only thing we can figure, is because of the higher vibrational, maybe the taste buds just are affected differently, and it has some people call it a sweeter taste, and some people just say, it doesn't have that bland, flat taste that you get like if you drink distilled water.
Another question coming in is, is it possible this Penta process can be performed on, say, a dam, a large body of water, and in the future? Is that a possible thing when you guys refine this technology?
Probably, if you were, it would be difficult to do a large volume of it. But if you were, I could see where you could run a device off of a dam, if it was a high enough dam, where you could use the power being generated by the dam to make it. But to make it in large quantities like that, I seriously doubt it at this stage. Of what we know of the technology, I can't readily see a way to do it in that larger quantities.
Now, I've been. The word structured water is like a little catchphrase, and if you were to do that on the internet, you come up with all these gizmos. And there's one I saw that claims to be able to do structured water, where you have a magnet located on the outside of a 2 liters, and you put the water in one, and then it spins around as you turn it upside down, and it does. I would imagine that's not at all what you're talking about. It's
not at all what we're talking about. And of course, magnetic fields do affect water, but as soon as you remove it from the field, it returns to its normal state. And so it's impossible to number one, to get it into the body or to store it in a bottle and move it anywhere. And that was the big challenge we had, was, achieving stability. And it took time, was, of course, the secret to that is we could make smaller clusters of water in a very short period of time, a few seconds. But to have the energy state of it takes a long time. It takes, totally from start to finish, takes about 11 hours to make a bottle of Penta Water. Of course, we don't make a single bottle at a time. We make vats of 12,000 gallons at a time, but it takes about 11 hours.
And one other thing I want to mention about the purity aspect of it is I avoided bottled waters because you could taste the plastic in it. And when I took a drink out of this, it was no plastic.
Well, the reason we put oxygen in there, that's the reason we add the oxygen to the water. We have the highest content of dissolved oxygen. You see these waters that talk about being a superoxygenated water? We have 5 times the oxygen that they have in their most super water, but we don't talk about it. The reason we put the oxygen in there is not to give you more oxygen, because anybody with any sense knows that you could never dissolve more than a half a breath of oxygen into water, and it wouldn't do you any good as far as giving you more oxygen. We put the oxygen in the water as nucleation sites, because real clean water likes to attach to plasticizers in the bottle. So it likes to attach to things. So we give it the oxygen to attach to. So we add the oxygen just as nucleation sites, so the water molecules can attach to the oxygen and not attack the plastic.
Oh, now that's clever, because that solves like the main problem I had with the water, not even getting to the other things. And it's not that I liked home water. And in fact, I had one of these little filter deals, for the water around here. But with Penta, I've done some experiments of my own. I actually put it in with plants.
It's phenomenal.
And it absorbed quickly. Now, I didn't have an A-B comparison where I have 2 plants, same plants, put it in there. But this time when I brought home some flowers, I put that in there, and it seemed to suck up like a sponge.
Well, I'll tell you a quick one that you can do, your audience can do, is that is get some mustard seeds from the hardware store. Divide the pack of mustard seeds into 2 dishes, cover them with some saran wrap, and, put Penta Water in one and tap water in the other, and then set a spotlight above it, about 18 inches above it, centered over both of them. And in 6 days, the root system they will have sprouted, and the root system on the tap water will be maybe 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch long, and the root system on the Penta Water one will be about 2 inches long. So it's a very dramatic difference.
And also, what I did was I made coffee with it. Now, I know coffee's not pure, but when I did make coffee with it, the 2 things I noticed is when I have a percolator. That's how I make coffee. To me, it's the best kind of way to do it. And as I watched it kind of boil, it seemed to me that the bubbles that would coagulate in the bottom were smaller. Is that because of the tension you mentioned, the surface tension? It didn't get the...
Surface tension is higher, and it does boil at a higher temperature. It's a very slight higher temperature, but when you're talking water, water is... And to get this water, to get Penta Water to boil at the same temperature that normal water boils at, you would have to add 2.4 grams of sodium chloride, of salt. In other words, so it's a statistically significant difference in the boiling point of Penta Water. Even though it's a small temperature change as far as temperature change goes, but as far as physics, the water is kind of the standard we use we know what water is about and what temperatures it boils at and what pressures and all of those things. And so to be able to change the very boiling point and the viscosity and the surface tension without any chemicals whatsoever is pretty amazing physics.
Well, yeah, it is, and I'm assuming this is going to be a patented process, but I mean, can you give us a...
It already is a patented process. It's not only patented for the process, we also have a composition of matter patent on the structure of it. We actually have the fingerprints, 4 or 5 different fingerprints, where you can see the difference of the water. It's actually a different structure of water.
Now, can you share maybe a thumbnail about how this process is, without violating the patents?
That, and of course, is out in the public domain. And actually, we use, if anyone is familiar with sonoluminescence, sound into light, we actually use that process of cavitation to over a long period of time to restructure the water. So we use acoustical energy caused by cavitation. When you go to the ocean and you hear a wave coming in, and you see a wave rolling in, all of a sudden you start to hear all this noise of the wave. Well, water doesn't make noise. If you were way out in the middle of the ocean, it would be totally silent out there. It wouldn't be making noise. But what happens when a wave starts to form is you create a partial vacuum, and that starts to degas the entrained gases in the water. And so those little cavitation bubbles then start to implode and explode at tremendous temperatures and pressures. That's what blows the rocks all apart and makes the sand. That's what makes the Grand Canyon and all that, is that cavitation. So we use that energy and that sound that you hear. If you were in our plant listening to the water being made, it sounds like the space shuttle taking off. In fact, right now we run it only at night because it drives you crazy all the way up in the office.
Wow. Now, how does someone think of that?
Well, it was actually. I got the idea from it in reading a 1995 edition of Scientific America on sonoluminescence, the February issue of sonoluminescence, and which is sound into light, where they were a professor from or physicist at UCLA, Seth Putterman, was using acoustical tethered cavitation bubble to create light, to create plasma like inside of this cavitation bubble. So it was reaching tremendously hot temperatures at tremendous pressures. And so I thought, geez, we could do it with those kind of temperatures, millions of degrees of temperature and hundreds of millions of psi of pressure. We could do a lot of work. So my son, who was also an engineer, we started talking about it, and we said, we ought to be able to do something with this. Maybe we could clean water with it without using chemicals, by changing the state of dissolved solids such as calcium bicarbonate, change it into calcium carbonate, because we knew of physics phenomena that when you reach a low pressure area and then cavitate it, it will change state. And so that's what we started out doing. And then along the way, we happened to see some very strange phenomena occurring that we started to say, wait a minute, what's going on here? We've created something entirely different. And originally we thought, well, this can't possibly be stable, because all the laws of physics that we knew at the time, it was impossible to change the state of water to a metastable state. But since then, we've been fortunate to find the Russians, who have done a lot of research in these areas, have the Raman spectra and the laser spectroscopy to actually test the water. And now universities that we're doing in the United States as well can test the boiling point, of course, and the viscosity. And it's just a totally new state of water.
Okay, we're going to hold right there. We'll come back after this break and continue. A couple of questions came in and asked what this water would do for, like, cosmetics or your skin, for example, externally.
It's phenomenal on your skin. One of the things you'll notice when you start drinking it is your hair will grow faster, your fingernails will grow faster, your skin will get clear up and get supple. The reason that happens is because repair protein that's generated by the cells is directly proportional to the state of hydration of the cell. There's plenty of studies already out that show that if a cell is 2 or 3% dehydrated, it puts out 2 or 3% less repair protein. So the better hydrated the cell is, the more efficiently it is at generating repair protein and repairing the body. So it does phenomenal for your skin. In fact, we have to actually spray it on our face after a shower. We'll spray it and then put a moisturizer on. Don't put the moisturizer first, because then it won't go in. But if you spray your face with a fine mist of the Penta Water and then put the moisturizer, it just sucks right into the skin. It's pretty amazing.
And so that would be something you would do. Like you would wash and you put that on and then put on some kind of a moisturizer or makeup.
Right, but the best way, of course, is drinking it. Everything you see on the outside of your body is already dead. It's already dead skin. All you're going to do is mask it. So if you really want your skin to be more supple and clear up and everything, is drink the water, and dose it from the inside. Because that's where you really affect the change to the body, because the surface skin that we see is already dead.
And how would this help, perhaps, in someone who is recovering from an illness or something like that?
Well, we don't make any health claims of the water. We're not allowed to, of course. But if you're well hydrated, when the ambulance comes to pick you up, if you've been in an accident or you go to surgery, what's the first thing they do? They slap an IV in you, because doctors all know the importance of hydration. If they can't keep you well hydrated, they're going to have trouble keeping you alive when they put you to sleep. As an anesthesiologist, that's his worst nightmare is having a patient that's not well hydrated. So IV becomes very important to any person that's been injured or undergoing surgery or undergoing an illness. Hydration has always been important. We go to the doctor and the doctor tells us we have the flu. Go home, rest in bed, and drink plenty of liquids. What he didn't tell you, and probably should have told you, if you'd have been drinking plenty of liquids, you probably wouldn't be here today. So it's very important that you drink a good, whether it be Penta Water or just a good clean water, that you drink at least half your body weight in ounces of good clean water a day. That's above and beyond any sodas, coffee, tea, things like that you drink. And that's just for good hydration management of your body, keep the cells, functioning properly, keep them detoxifying and allowing delivery of nutrition to the cells and toxins out of the body. If it's not inconvenient for you, if you don't have to go to the restroom where it's inconvenient, then you're not drinking enough. It should be inconvenient. A few thousand years ago, we didn't have to worry about that. We were roaming around the woodlands of the brushlands, but nowadays it becomes a little bit inconvenient. But it's very important to your health. If you want to stay really healthy, you should be having to urinate quite frequently. You can only get toxins out of your body by getting them out of your body.
No, that's true, and I heard things about caffeine being a
diuretic.
Yeah, and it actually squeezes the water out of you.
Caffeine is a diuretic, and it's not that you can't live off of drinks with caffeine in them. Certainly you can sustain life, but it's the quality of life and it's the quality of health that you're going to see on your body over your lifetime, because they've now discovered that actual aging is not caused by the mechanism that they thought caused it, that it's actually caused by damage to the mitochondria DNA over time. And we've already done 2 studies on Penta Water showing that it protects the DNA. And in fact, the study that we did on mutagenics showed that human cells on lab deionized water, which is just as clean as Penta, had 271% more mutations than Penta Water DNA did. So it's quite dramatic difference.
What about, and I'm not going to get into water wars, so to speak, but I've been reading about this some kind of a prill thing that was mined in Colorado that it did some kind of structural change to the water. Have you heard of that or looked into that at all? Or?
I've looked into most all of them. Most additives that you do, all they do is change the surface tension of the water. What they are is surfactants. Most of the people that claim to have structured waters, and they are structured waters, this kind of structure it is, they usually put surfactants in them, soaps. And these surfactants have little tiny crystals in them that the water will attach to each corner of that crystal and form a cluster. But it's not the kind of clusters that you want, because number one, those minerals can't go into your cell. They go into your cell, the cell dies. The cell only takes in single file pure H2O molecules. If you look at how the body functions, how a cell functions, it's already trying to tell you what it wants. It wants good, clean water. You know, the inrush, they say, drink more calcium, drink water with calcium in it. That's not true. The body uses calcium pectate, which is the organic form of calcium, and it doesn't like calcium carbonate. It's not absorbed well by the body at all. And it's kind of like taking a Tums. So you have a little bit of calcium that's in your drinking water. As soon as it hits the stomach acid, it's dissolved anyway. It's destroyed. It's annihilated because it has a negative charge, and your stomach acid has a positive charge. And when they hit one another, they're annihilated. It's the same thing as taking a Rolaids. Only Rolaids has 1,500 milligrams of calcium carbonate, where your water at the most may have 150 or 200 milligrams per liter. So you'd have to get any appreciable amount of minerals out of your water, you'd have to drink 1,000 bottles a day. And it's just not how you get your minerals. You get your minerals from big green leafy vegetables, from soy products, from dairy products. You know, there's no one silver bullet that does everything. You have to have a good diet, proper nutrition. You have to move your body through space. You've got to exercise, and you have to be well hydrated. So it takes the whole thing. Penta Water by itself is not a solution, and diet by itself is not a solution. It takes it all.
Well, that's a very good point. And I never thought about having the physical appearance of water appearing like it's really something, but really it's just kind of, it's not an illusion. It just doesn't do anything really good for you.
What's that?
When you were talking about these other surfactants and all that.
Oh yeah, no, they're not. Yeah, it's just it shows nice if you're testing it out on a meter. Like they'll tell you, look at this, it has a negative 250 millivolts, that it's oxygen reduction potential. It has the good reduction potential, negative millivolts. Well, when next time somebody does that to you, take that same water, put it in your mouth, rinse it around, spit it back out, and test it again, and now you'll see it's positively charged. So if it couldn't make it past your lips, it's very doubtful it's going to make it through your stomach acid, which is about a 1.5 or 2 pH. So there's no way it can get into your body. So it's a sales gimmick. It's just what you have to sell at the time is what you're trying to hype. And these mineral waters, we're dead set against mineral waters and spring waters. We believe that they provide plaquing mechanism for some of your more disastrous disease states, such as Alzheimer's and arteriosclerosis and rheumatoid arthritis. It's not that they cause the disease, but they provide the calcification, the plaquing mechanism. Because our diet, our increase of calcium carbonate is probably a 1,000,000-fold increase in the last 60 years, because it's put in all of your foods as a food filler, because it is a bulker to bulk food up, because it's cheap as sand, so it's added to most all of your processed foods. So we get a tremendous amount of calcium, but it's the wrong kind of calcium. It's not the calcium that your body really wants. So people need to look into that and get their calcium from soy products and dairy products and big green leafy vegetables and things of that nature, which is nature's natural way of giving you the minerals and stuff that you need. It's the organic form of them.
Well, I would imagine that since this is absorbed so well by the system, that if someone was taking medicines or vitamins or whatever, that would be perfect drink to drink with it.
Absolutely. That's what we were making it for originally, was the delivery system to the cell. We were trying to clean water up. I was suffering from fibromyalgia. I still have it. And I was looking into what could possibly be causing the fibromyalgia. And one of the things I come up with was lack of oxygen to the mitochondria. And when I looked to see how oxygen was delivered to the cell, well, lo and behold, I found it's delivered in water. That wasn't delivered by the red blood cell at all. It's taken down to the capillary beds by the red blood cells, but then it gives up that oxygen to the plasma, the water portion of the blood, and so it travels by water into the cells through these protein channels that we talked about called aquaporins. And so oxygen is actually delivered to the cell by water. And so that we were trying to clean water up to get it to where it would better oxygenate and hydrate my cell and therefore oxygenate my cell. And in doing so, it, got me out of the bed from being laid up and crippled to being able to work 7 days a week, 12, 14 hours a day. It didn't cure me. I still have the fibromyalgia after a long day, 12-hour day, or if I get under stress, it'll flare up and I'll have a lot of pain, but I have, limitless amount of energy. I'm 63 years old, and I'm back to work. I started another business, and now it's the water's being, enjoyed by people around the world and helping a lot of people around the world.
Okay, let's hold there. We'll come back for the last segment. And it's fun. It's great to actually have, we'll call it a health product that's not just like, it's not like flash and fancy. I mean, it's a real, actual improvement that does well. So I'm pretty excited about it.
The great thing is how fast you feel the effects of it.
That's true. Let's hold off for 1 second. We're going to cut to a break, and we'll come back.
Okay.
Back talking live with Bill Holloway, inventor of Penta Water, the system that takes water to that next level, I guess, in many ways you can call it.
Absolutely. It is a totally new structure of water. And I say the greatest thing about it is how fast you can feel the effects of it. Very often on the very first bottle, but certainly on the very first day that you drink 4 bottles of it, you'll feel a tremendous difference, increase in energy and a feeling of well-being. Athletes that drink it, they won't be sore after or people, just normal couch potatoes, you won't be sore after your workout, because it's probably one of the best products on the market for helping with edema, helping swelling in the body go down. And that's one of the things that causes the pain when you exercise. People like to think it's lactic acid buildup, but it's not. You do little micro tears to the tissue, and that causes localized swelling around those areas, and that impinges on the nerves and makes you sore for 2 or 3 days. Well, Penta Water is so great at removing that edema that you don't have that soreness during your workout. So athletes and couch potatoes alike, which I am, couch potato, love the Penta Water for that reason. And I think you probably noticed, James, that when you drink it, you don't get that heavy, bloated feeling. You can pound down 2 or 3 of them without having that heavy, sloshy feeling in your stomach.
It's true. I want to say the way I would describe it as a lay term is that it literally absorbs through my mouth. It just goes right into the system.
You mentioned that there's a professor in England at John Moores University who wants to do a study on the gastric emptying of Penta Water to see where does it go, because he also happens to be work for give advice and stuff to 4 soccer teams, major league soccer teams over in England. And so he says, one of the things I notice is the athletes run off the field and will pound down a Penta Water in 2 or 3 seconds and then run right back onto the field, he said, and without any stomach distress. He said, any other water, they get sick at their stomach, have stomach distress. He said, I can't understand it. So he actually wants to do a study on gastric emptying to see how does this get in the bloodstream so fast.
Now, to kind of ask a question that I know I have a friend I talked to who's very into natural and doesn't like technology. And how do we know that this is like a tip of an iceberg that's tempting and it does all these things, but then there's any long-term type effects that it might be?
Well, one of the reasons is because it is very natural the way it happens. It happens around volcanoes and things like that, where anywhere you cause a tremendous amount of cavitation. It can happen in rivers and streams where you're running down rapids and stuff and causing a lot of tremendous amount of cavitation. It's just that no one has ever paid attention and noticed this phenomena and been able to utilize it, to to help mankind. There's no additives in it whatsoever. It's just water that's vibrating at a higher energy state, the same as it would be if you were boiling water and drinking hot water. Only thing, it stays in that higher energy state, all the way into the cell. So it's not any additive. There's no additives. It's very pure and clean. We use no chemicals in purifying it. It's just the purest water on the market today.
I want to thank you for being here, and you can check this out at pentawater.com and at your health stores. They're all over the place. And I want to thank you for taking the time and explaining to us that this is a real deal and there's something really behind it.
Well, it is. And, the first 3 or 4 years we were snake oil salesmen, and now we're being accepted more and more by mainstream doctors and stuff worldwide.
If you're going to super saturate water with salt or sugar or something like that, you're putting some kind of energy into it so that it vibrates faster and yet remains water?
Right. Yeah, actually what we believe is occurring, and we don't know yet for sure, but what we see happening when we do a laser spectroscopy on it is that we're pulling the electrons out into a higher orbit, so that and because they're in a higher orbit, to make the same trip around the nucleus and to keep from colliding into the nucleus, they have to travel faster. So the whole molecule is vibrating faster.
Okay, now I can understand that, but how do you keep
it? It's not an electrical energy; it's a vibrational energy.
How do you keep it? According to my knowledge of physics, how do you keep it up in the higher shells without releasing that energy and going back down to the natural state?
Wow, we wish we knew.
Okay.
We do not have the slightest idea why. You're absolutely correct. It should return to the lower energy state, and it doesn't. And it boils at a higher temperature. That'll be being published very shortly.
So, let me bring in our guest, Mr. Bill Holloway. Hello, Bill.
James, how are you doing today?
Oh, very good, very good, very good. And I want to tell you, I stumbled onto Penta Water at a health store, and the person said, you got to try this. They told me the structured water, and it's pure and all that. Okay, fine. And I just took it and went in my truck, and I drove away. Well, I took that drink that night when I got to my hotel room. I took it out, and once I started drinking, I could not stop.
No.
It was just what? It was like wet and no bad taste, and it was just like gone. I'm like, wow, what was this?
Almost vanishes in your mouth. It's just almost like drinking liquid air.
Yeah, and it's satisfying, but it also leaves you for more. And then that's when I stuck the tape in, which came with it when I bought it, and I listened to it later and explained a few things, and I just wanted to share that with the people. It's really an incredible thing.
Well, it is. We're very proud of it, and it took a lot of years to get it to market, and it's become the number one bottled water and health food industry for the last 2 years, with no advertising and no marketing, just by word of mouth. It's already exported to Canada, to the UK, to Japan, to Taiwan, it's just around the world. And
people are listening here by their computers. If they go to pentawater.com, you can follow along, so to speak. One of the basic things when you're talking about bottled water is it's pure. But this is purer than pure, isn't it?
Well, we start off with the purity. We start off by taking it through reverse osmosis, and then deionization, and then microfiltration and ultraviolet treatment. So once we clean it up from about 600 parts per million of total dissolved solids down to less than a quarter of a part per million, down to the parts per billion, then we're ready to make it into Penta Water. And from that point on, it takes an additional 8 hours to make Penta Water with it.
So, I mean, it's not only just pure. I mean, it's the purest. I mean, we're starting out already. If that was all the water was, it would be good.
That's right.
But that's kind of the start.
That's just the start. And from there, then we treat it with ultrasound, and we actually change the state of the water. It's still water, still H2O, but for one thing, it's in about 30% smaller cluster size on average, but that's not the real key to it. The real key to the function of why it works is its energy state. It's in a different vibrational energy state. In other words, it's metastable. It vibrates at a different energy state than normal water.
And is that because it's smaller, or is that just the smaller?
No, it's not because it's smaller. You know, you can't make a molecule itself smaller. You can make the clusters of molecules smaller. It's like if you say you boiled water. You boiled water, you're taking it into a higher energy state. It's leaving the ground state and going to a higher energy state. Well, we're able to do that at room temperature, take it to a higher energy state without having to boil it, without having to heat it to do it. So when it goes into your body, it's vibrating at a higher energy state, so it can do more work inside of your body.
No, all right. Now that's because I have a little chemistry, physics background, you know, high school, college stuff, and I was always into science. And that's the part that really fascinated me, was that I wanted to know you're putting energy into it, sort of like if you were going, and I'm using a bad analogy perhaps, but just like...
It's more viscous than normal water, has a higher surface tension than normal water, yet it's absorbed into the cells much more rapidly. You recover from exercise. We just had a study that just was completed by John Moores University in Liverpool, England, that will be published, and athletes on a double-blind placebo crossover study were completely after they were dehydrated, a 2% loss of body weight to dehydration, and then they were rehydrated with a control water and then Penta Water. They were completely recovered from the dehydration in 4 hours, where the other waters that they used for control hadn't even turned the corner and started towards recovery yet, and yet the athletes that were on the Penta Water had completely recovered. All their hemoglobin, their hematocrit, all their blood was back to normal levels. All their physiological response and everything were back to normal.
So this higher vibrational state would allow the water to pass through the membranes and exchange